Oh, me, I love God. I love God. I love God so much. Oh, this season of my life is just absolutely beautiful. If this video is too long, it's going to be on YouTube. If not, then it's probably going to be on WhatsApp. But either way, so I am getting really excited about the idea of getting married, right? I think the idea of marriage is like so beautiful, like just ridiculously beautiful. But then again, I've been in this phase where God is like telling me patience, right? And so the thing is, I love God in such a way that I know He's intentional. God is not just gonna give you something because you're asking for it, right? And I've observed, because, and I've seen it and I've experienced it personally. Like God is very foundational. Like he's a God of order and He's a God of structure, and so everything needs to have like a really deep rooted foundation, and then from there He's gonna build it up, right? So He's just gonna prematurely throw something at you, knowing very well, um this is something that I've always told my little sister. Imagine you're like asking, like, there's this beautiful couch that you want, right? But then you don't have a place where you're gonna come and put this couch. So if God is like, okay, fine, beautiful, she's like asking for this couch, and where is this couch gonna come and stand? Under a tree? Why you probably don't even have like a house or a structure where this couch will be housed, right? This is besides the point. I'm just trying to explain that God is beautifully strategic and intentional. And when God asks you to wait, just wait. Like, why are you stressing? Wacht net. So again, the idea of marriage sounds very, very exciting. But there came this place in my conversations with God where I was like actually coming to a place and I was like asking God, I know marriage is beautiful, but why the hell do people get married? Like, because like most people whose marriages have survived, and these people that I listen to, continuously mention that it's difficult, right? It's difficult, but they're working on it, especially when they have God in the picture, right? It's like it's functioning. So I was really coming to ask the question, like, God, so I know you say like he who finds a wife, that means not all of us are wives. That means you actually make, or you turn us into wives before we even before Adam or these guys even know find their particular wives, right? And so now I had to like really query again the whole thing of, am I even a wife? Like, am I even there? Because one of the illusions that we walk around with sometimes as women is thinking that, you need to get the perfect guy, because we have most a list now of how amazing this brother is supposed to be. But I sometimes think to myself, as much as you have this list and you want all of these things, like, are you worthy of this man that you are trying to get? Are you even worthy of these particular human beings? Because we act as if God does not love his sons. Are you firmly founded in God, rooted in God, obeying God? Like, has God transformed you enough for you to be a blessing to his son? Or just manet for the sake of, you don't want to be alone, you is horny, you want to have sex, you don't want to be alone, like. So God has always from the beginning promised me that at every crossroads of my life, he's going to lead me somewhere. He's going to lead me to somebody. He's going to lead me, whether it's to a video, whether it's to a sermon, that's going to help me learn, that's going to help answer some of the questions, right? And so I'm watching this video now. Like, not, I've probably watched like 2 videos today. And one of the things that's at the back of my mind is, am I wasting time on these videos? Like, am I wasting time on this platform, reading on this? Should this probably have been a time spent more productively, like maybe studying the word or praying? But learning can also happen outside of studying the word and praying as well, right? Because there's so many other resources that God can also use for us to learn from. And so at one point I was watching this video and I was like asking God, like, what are you trying to teach me though? Like, what are you trying to teach me? And so I'm having this conversation with God, and I really just thought, this is amazing. I need to share. Like, I really, really, really need to share this. So, this is the conversation. God is teaching me the value of man. Let me break it down. So when God brought this up, I was not thinking to myself, huh? And so the questions that are in my head is like, okay, fine. What role is a man supposed to play? Like what role have you seen a man play technically? And so I really thought about it, and I was like, oh my goodness. Some of us have grown up in homes where there were no fathers. Some of us grew up in homes where there were fathers, but they were just figures of authority that never taught, they never guided, they just existed. And I was really telling God, like, God, what is the purpose of this man? What are they supposed to do? Because one of the things that I've always wanted more than a husband was children. But I also knew innately that I wanted to raise children in a balanced home where there is a father and where there is a mother. But my idea of what this husband was supposed to come and do, only thing that I really thought that I wanted him there for, was to help me with the babies. Was to help me change the nappies. Was to just, when I'm completely and utterly exhausted, to say, you know what, bring the baby, you can rest. You can go take a shower. Those are like the basic things that I wanted him around for. I never honestly thought he's supposed to come and play the role of guiding and teaching and praying and leading. And I was like telling God, I don't know what men do. Because I don't have any kind of a semblance, no example of what a man is supposed to do. And no, seriously, I grew up with in a home of my stepdad and my mom, right? But most of my dad's life, especially when he was walking, it was like he walked on the road. He was, always away from home. And come to think about it, he would only be home for a certain period of time. If he was maybe off for a long time, it was a month, and he's back to work, or he would come back for a while, and then it was back to. And most of that time, my mother was practically just getting pregnant, comrades, ne? And then the next time, he comes, she's having a baby, or she's this pregnant, and and I was actually thinking oh my God, my mom most of the time was actually pregnant alone with the rest of us and the kids at home. She was married, but she was single as well. And so as much as there was a marriage that I was raised in, with this two couple, I cannot comprehend. I do not know what men do. And so God was like, you know what? I am teaching you the value of man. Because as much as I want to get married, if I don't know what the purpose of a man is, I'm never going to value him. Yes, it will be great to have companionship, because that's a lot of times why we want to get married, because we want to have companionship. Because we don't want to come home to a quiet house. Sometimes things just happen in our lives where, we just want to come and sit down, have dinner with the person, and, just have a conversation and just have companionship. So that's as far as companionship goes. But as far as life goes, as far as figuring things out, God has been having a conversation with me about total surrender and a total dependence on him. So there's a lot of things that I needed to let go of so that God could I could literally, to a degree of my daily bread. I have to be completely dependent on God for my daily bread. That's how far as God was pushing me to depend on him. And I was even asking him, is this part of you teaching me about what a spouse is supposed to be? Is this part of the lesson of what a man is supposed to be? And me God, God, you're good. I don't know if anyone has told you that, but you're so good. I just love how amazing. I just love, why do I even stress sometimes? Seriously, why do I even stress sometimes? You truly are just. You're just beautiful. You're just amazing. But, for a long time, especially when God was like teaching me about depending on Him, right? The conversation I was having with God around this is I've always been self reliant. I've always had a plan C, right? For my plan A. I've always had an exit strategy. I've always, like, I was really, when I was having this conversation, like when God was like saying, I need your total dependence, I was even really telling God, but God, it's true though. I have always relied on myself because of circumstance. God, I could never, especially men. Guys, me, I don't know how to rely on men. I don't know how. I don't know how. What do you do? That's the question I have for men. Like, what do they do, God? What are they there for? Hirimane. God, what is it, Darva? I was telling God, like, I have had many in my life that have the disappointment that I know in my life is from men. My self-reliance is because I could not rely on men. Like, nada. It's like telling God, I am so self-reliant that even if somebody tells me, oh yeah, I'm going to do that for you, I'll hear it. I'll hear it, but I'll still do it myself. I'll still find a way to do it myself because I hear you. But what does it mean? What does it mean? Anything that comes out of your mouth, what does it mean? You just you just talk. That's my experience with men. Like, men talk. Oh, you talk a good game. But I was just like, but God, man, I'm like, what now? 30 something. And I'm just like, in all of my life, I cannot think of a moment that I had a reliable man. So I've had to learn to always do it by myself. I've had to learn to always be there for myself. I've had to learn to, you know what I'm saying? It's always me. And when God is now teaching me about the reliance on man, or like what their role is, what their functions is, it's so beautiful. Because without this understanding, I'm gonna break a man who walks into my life right now. If God does not do what He needs to do, if God does not teach me what He needs to teach me, if God really does not allow, if God doesn't teach me enough to let go of the reins that I've held on to, I'm going to break someone's son. I'm going to be excited about it because falling in love with somebody is, falling in love is beautiful. And it's exciting. And knowing that somebody sees you and somebody's talking to you and they want to get to know you for who you are and, they want a life. That is beautiful though. But after that surface level, if I can allow a man to be a man in my life, he would be miserable. I would be miserable in the long run. And it would probably be like, you know what, I tried this out, but I'm done. Please give me the divorce papers to sign. And so when I'm looking at these videos and when I'm reading, all of these things, it's so much more behind the scenes that God is currently doing with me. I'm like, oh, that's what they do? Oh, really? I didn't know that. Really? Because even when I hear men talk, and especially men who say like, some of them had therapy, some of them are figuring these things out, these are some of the things, the brokenness of childhood that came forth, when they're married, and marriage has been a beautiful reflection of their younger selves and the unhealed version of themselves. It goes back to the fathers. And then I'm like, so these men are broken because they didn't have men that God, like that guided them, that taught them. They're like, we don't do it this way. Like even the vulnerability, like some men don't know how to be vulnerable because they didn't have a father that taught them about vulnerability. They didn't have a father that taught them about communication. The fathers that were, if your father was there, like from what I'm seeing, when the father was there, he never spoke. He never spoke. All he did was bring money home. He said he had a specific chair where he's sitting. He was given the big plate. And this is some of the things that men, even after they're saved, walk into the kingdom of God with. And they're playing this because that's what they've seen their fathers do. And so they think, no, that's what men are supposed to be. They're like, so they want to govern and they want to rule, and they're taking this place of authority and you serve me. Whereas the Bible teaches of love your wife like Christ loved the church. What does that love look like? Oh, that love looks like service. That love looks like unconditional service. That love looks like sacrifice. When the Bible says, do not treat your wife harshly, that love looks like gentility. That love doesn't look like arrogance. And so God is like, if you allow God, He will put you through His therapy, where He's going to show you. No. God is amazing, guys. It's not even a joke. I remember there was one time when I was telling God, I feel like you're changing me too much. And I was like telling him, I feel like you're changing him too much. And I feel like you're going to change me into something that I'm not even going to recognize. But then you say you knew me before you formed me in my mother's womb. And you call me by name. And now all of a sudden you want to change me? How is that not contradicting to what you say about having already known me? So if you know me and you're cool with the fact that you've known me, you've called me, why are you changing me so much? Are you going to change me until a point where I don't even recognize myself anymore? And this is what God told me. Because I remember there's one time when I was like telling him, I'm loudmouthed, bruh. Like I'm just a loudmouthed woman. And then God was like, yeah, I know, I made you that way. And I was like, then why are you trying to change me? And then God was like, I'm not changing you. I'm just taking you back to the default settings. I'm just removing what I didn't plan. Because not all of what you are is from me. Because I wasn't the only one that had an influence in who you became. So there's a lot of what I created, but there's also a lot more that I didn't create. There's a lot more that I didn't teach. There's a lot more that I didn't influence. There is so many truths that you're holding on to that I didn't implant. That's not my truth. I don't know. Like you got that truth from somewhere else, right? And then he was like showing me an idea. Like he was like teaching me through like little children, how little children, you could raise your child. Like in my home, when I grew up, because my parents were Christian, like we didn't curse. Like if you meet us as a family, in my language we have prefixes. Is that a prefix? Yeah. To someone's name, right? To show respect. So you say things like do, mi dure. Okay? You're just not saying how are you. There's something that you say before the how are you to show respect. You don't just call someone by their name. There's something that you say before a name just to show respect. Okay? There are certain words that are there in our language. English is very disrespectful. If you actually directly translated English into some of our languages, it would come off quite ridiculously disrespectful. But in our family, like we're very like even the people that we grew up around knew that these children from this house are very respectful. Just because of how we utilized language. That's why even to this day, like for us, respect, when we were growing up, respect was accorded up. Right? If somebody's even a year older than you, even a few months older than you, there was honor that you show to this person. Even if you felt like you're in the same age group, that person, even if it's a year, that person's older than you, you better show them some respect. Né? But that respect, I have carried it over even to my younger siblings. Because usually it's supposed to only be the younger siblings that shows respect to the older siblings, right? Or to anyone older than them. But I have adapted it in such a way that you won't see me talking to my younger brother as if he's actually my younger. You'll think I'm talking to somebody who's older than me when I talk to my younger brothers. That's the respect that I accord them. Nee. So I don't know how I got to this conversation. I got done. Please don't let me forget or lose my train of thought. But people did not have guardianship. Like, people did not have guardianship. So when God is asking me to be patient with my spouse, and the fact that for whenever he decides to bring him, right? Because I know my spouse is on his way. I probably already even met him. But I'm not supposed to act upon it. So the beautiful thing is, I don't know what God is doing in my spouse. There's probably some things that he's also doing in my spouse, but I know for a fact that he's doing something in me as the spouse of my spouse. Because I was just like, if honestly, I used to, there's this thing that I used to believe, really, like, there's this thing that some woman will say, like, women need men like fish needs a bicycle or something like that. Like, it's almost to just disregard their value. Ne? It's to disregard the value of man. And I'm just like, you're really just there for reproductive purposes. Like, that was the thinking. Like, you're really just there for reproductive services. And if we can even have you for reproduction, it's cool, because now we can actually also just decide that, you know what, I'm just, because that was literally my decision. I was like, you know what, I just want kids. I don't want my window of having babies to run out on me. So I'm gonna get kids. I'm gonna get myself, a sperm donor, and I'm just gonna get my babies. We can co-parent if you want to be a parent. Or even if you don't want to get involved, I can still do this by myself. Like, that was like my way of thinking. That was just how much I really honestly felt like I didn't need a man. But now, like, really, the fact that I'm excited about getting a man, I still don't know what role he's supposed to play. And like, that's what God is now is like literally doing, like teaching me what this man's function is going to be in my life. Because how do I submit to somebody who value I don't understand? How do I extend respect to somebody if I feel like what they can do, I can do? Then why do I need them? Then what is the purpose of them being a spouse? What is the purpose of them being in my life? Do you know how hard? Do you know how heartbreaking that is? This is why I'm saying God also loves his sons. Like, God also loves his sons, and God also wants, honestly, what is best for them. But think about how heartbreaking it possibly would be if a man walks into my life, or if a woman walks into your life, and you love him, you really do, right? You love him, and it's amazing to have him around. But when life happens, you will jump in and you will do everything that this poor man is supposed to do. How heartbreaking for him to realize that he's not valuable enough to the person that he loves, that he's not needed by the person that he loves. Like, he's just there for the pictures. No, really. He's just there for the pictures. He's just there for his penis. He's just there for, whatever little sprinkle on the cake that he can offer. Until I'm like, wow, these humans have a major role to play in changing the narrative of generations. They have an important role to play in nurturing and teaching children. They are so important that without them, society is broken. That men are dysfunctional, women are dysfunctional. Like, people don't know what. No, there's so much dysfunction. And yes, we can argue and say, yes, but the women are there. Women have played the role of man and woman, and they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. It's because of a lack of godly men who are guided by God, men who ought to love like Christ loved the church. It's because of a lack of these men that there is so, like, oh my goodness, there is like disaster. So they are so valuable. And I man, just having this conversation with God was mind blowing. I'm like, what? But then, in order for them to do the job that God has called them to do, the woman that they are gonna do this thing with also needs to do the job that they are called to do. This is a partnership. It really is a partnership. And that's why when people say like marriage is a beautiful representation of God and like his love for us, it makes sense. Because the relationship that we have with God is supposed to be a partnership. Like, God can operate in a way that he needs to fully operate without us. Because we should be willing. We should be willing for our minds to be transformed. We should be willing to die to self. We should be willing to sacrifice the flesh. It's a partnership that's not going to work. Like, imagine, my little sister was telling me the other day that there was this particular man, the purpose that he was, like, everybody serves a particular purpose. So she was like, his life was meant to save the life of this one little girl. Like, that's why he lived as long as he did. And when that purpose of his was done, he was taken away from this world. Even when you look at people that get organ transfers and, donors and things like that, some people, like, I could die, and if I'm an organ donor, somebody could actually get saved from my organs. And I would have lived all of this life, and part of my purpose would have actually been to save that other person's life, right? Like, it's the same thing as there's a particular person that has probably heard of the gospel of God, but this person got saved when they heard the gospel from you. So there needed to be a partnership between God and you for you to be able to reach out to this person and make a disciple of them. But had you not agreed, had you not obeyed God because of this partnership, the walk to an extent of saving that person's life never would have happened. So just as much as this, vertical relationship is a partnership, so this relationship that we're going to be having with our spouses is also expected to be a partnership because it serves a purpose. And God needs to there's so much that God can and will do through godly institutions, man, through godly marriages. But the work needs to happen. And so, as women, if you're praying for a husband, pray that God makes you a wife. Like, God, what does it mean to be a wife? And pray that God helps you understand the value that men are supposed to come and play, not just in your life, right? But what value men are supposed to play in the institution of marriage, what value men are supposed to play, in society, what value men are supposed to play in church, what value men are supposed to play in the lives of children, right? In changing the narrative in a godly way. Men are valuable. but we shouldn't be setting the measurement of their value. Allow God to teach you the value of man. And then pray, that God also transforms this man so that they can also see the value that they're supposed to play. Woo! The transformation that God's going to do in the world when everybody just takes their rightful place, but especially when men take their rightful place. There was this day when I was praying. I think we're praying as a community in church or something. And then I think we're also praying for children. And so there was somebody that said, you know what, if you see a child, someone next to you, just go stand around that children and, pray for them. And so there was this little boy that was with his mom. And so when I turned around, I saw him. So, I joined that group. So, we could pray for this man. And what God was telling me afterward, like the prophecy for this young boy was, you're going to see so many things and you're going to hear so many things. But the one thing that you need to remember in anything in your life, one thing that you need to remember and take away from, and I was actually telling this to the mother to continuously instill this in this boy, is that you will lead a revolution of godly masculinity. I know we've heard quite a lot about toxic masculinity, but you'll be a pioneer of godly masculinity for his generation, because he's like a very young guy. Maybe he's like, I don't know, 10, 9. He was a very young kid. But that was beautiful. And so when I told that boy this, at the back of my head, I was still not sure. I still did not know what godly masculinity actually looks like. And I still feel like I still don't have like a full picture of it, but I'm curious to learn. Like, I feel like this phase of my life is actually also learning about what does godly masculinity look like? What does godly femininity look like? But anyways, let me end that there. I think this was just no. I'm not gonna call mom. I wanted to call it a beautiful epiphany, but it's just a beautiful revelation. I'm not gonna call moments that I have with the Holy Spirit as an epiphany. It's really just a beautiful revelation that I'm honored. That I'm so honored. Woo! That I'm so honored to see a glimpse of.